That's a waggler.
Oh my word. Well, just look at the size of that. That's about 12 inches long, and it just dwarfs this little Peacock Wagler here. Just tell us exactly what that does.
Basically, it involves putting ground bait round the bottom of the float, like so. It's a bit of a rough ball, but it gives you the general idea. What happens is you cast that out, hits the water, clouds the water full of food, particles, ground, lots of food for the carp. They'll start swimming around in the cloud. Hook baits, say 3 foot below the actual ball of ground bait. Carp moving about, take the hook bait, bolt off, hook themselves against the weight of the float, and the job's done.
Okay, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. The Baggin Waggler with Steve Ringer. Well, I've set my waggler rig up. It's not quite the same as Steve's, a little bit stumpier, but nevertheless it's the same principle. But the most important feature about Baggin Waggler isn't the float, is it, Steve?
No, ground bait, Jan. That's the most important factor in Baggin Waggler fishing. Without ground bait, you can have the best floats, best line, best anything in the world. Ground bait, that's got to attract the fish to your swim in the first place.
And I notice you've knocked this one up earlier. It's just very, very dry, isn't it?
One of the biggest mistakes people make when mixing ground bait is they turn up to the bank and they try and mix a massive quantity of ground bait up. You need to give the ground bait the time to fully absorb the water. So it needs to be done the night before. It's a bit like a curry, it always tastes better the next day.
Yeah, but surely if you make it the night before, then a lot of that flavour is going to sort of dissipate. Is it still stay as potent?
If anything, it's more potent. When you mix it up the night before and then smell it the next morning, it's a lot stronger.
Now, one thing I would mean to ask you is, Steve's got a few secrets here. He always puts a few of his specials in there. Now, I noticed there's a few flakes of maize in there, a bit of hemp maybe, some pink stuff, which is...
I think we'll just leave that subject there, Jan, to be honest.
I did try. Anyway, show us how it works around the float itself, because...
Another mistake people make is they clamp the ground bait on too hard. This is lovely and soft in texture. I'm just placing it around the feeder. You end up with sort of a rugby ball, which creates a very aerodynamic shape for casting.
Well, that's the finished article. As you can see, it is nice and aerodynamic and sat on the bottom of the float. What we're going to do now is we're going to tank test it just to show exactly what happens under the water.
What happens as the ground bait hits the water, you get an initial breakdown straight away.
Oh, I can see it. It's amazing. Look at all that cascading down, and presumably that falls straight on top of the hook bait, yeah?
You're sort of getting a soup effect around the feeder. There's loads of attraction there, but in theory, the only bait there for the actual fish to take will be your hook bait.
OK, well, enough of the theory. Let's get a bit moulded around the float, and I want to catch a fish. I'll just use that bit that's already on. Is that OK?
Yeah, it should be fine.
Well, just before I cast out, just have a quick look at the hook bait. Now, I think you're familiar with that, aren't you, Steve?
Yeah, white boilies seem to be the in thing at Drayton at the minute, but boilies, any colour really. Avoid the bright colours, but white's the in colour, definitely at the mo.
OK, well, that's good enough for me. I've got a 10mm white boilie on a little hair rig, size 10 barbless hook, to 6 pound hook length and an 8 pound main line. I should catch a fish, shouldn't I?
Yeah, they do pull a bit, but that'll be adequate.
OK, here we go.
Accuracy is very important, Jan. A big mistake I see a lot of people make is they cast to the horizon with their first shot and then they can't cast there again. Just chuck a nice comfortable distance.
Well, I'm using that, you see that toilet block over there? It's not a pretty sight, but there's a couple of toilets over there. I'm actually using that as a marker.
Yeah, it's a good idea. You need to pick a marker on the far bank.
Just have a quick check behind me, make sure there's nobody walking about. And just a nice steady lob. That went in with a right clatter, didn't it?
That's what you need, Jan. It's like ringing the dinner bell for them.
You'd think that'd scare fish a mile away.
If anything, it has the opposite effect. The fish are just coming straight away and homing in on that splash.
Do I just leave it now? Is that the...
Yeah, I normally leave it for about 35, 40 seconds. Just let the ground bait cascade. You're getting a bit of a cloud around the float now. After 35, 40, I'll just give it a little twitch. You're not even going to get time to do that because it's gone straight away.
That's brilliant. I fully expected the rod to sort of pull out of my hand, but it went under and I struck like a conventional waggler, which is a bit bizarre, really, considering how big the float was.
I like to pick up on them, you know what I mean? You've got to be careful. You don't want to be striking like Zorro, so to speak, but just a gentle pick-up's all you need.
OK, well, I'll try and get this one in as quick as I can. Obviously...
They do pull a bit.
It's fighting very, very well.
Yeah, you've got it basically right. Keep the rod nice and low, you know what I mean? That helps to keep the fish in front of you. Once you've got it coming, just keep winding. And if it wants to go, let it go. You don't need to pull its head off. It's just keeping things smooth.
Yeah. Well, the biggest mistake I know in any form of fishing is anglers actually point the rod at the fish. They get a big fish, they drop the rod, flat rod it, and all of a sudden everything's on the hook length, and that's
So when you use the rod, that's what it's there for. The rod's there to bend, you know what I mean? Like you say, too many people cut the action of the rod in half.
It's still a little bit away from the bank, but if you could just pass me that net I've got there.
Yep, no problem.
I didn't expect to catch one this quick, to be honest with you.
I certainly homed in on that ball straight away.
Yeah. Now, there's no way I'm doing this anywhere near as efficient as you. I mean, I'm a bit rusty on the old match scene. I've caught a few carp, but...
It's a lot to do with practice, Jan. You know, practice makes perfect at the end of the day.
I've got to be careful of these boards, presumably.
Nice fish as well.
There you go.
You can see the white boilie on the edge of its mouth.
Well, that was a missed opportunity for sure. Now, you'd have had that straight in the net, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it is practice, Jan, you know what I mean? It's just bringing the fish up in that distance so you can get it in the net first time. There you go. He's yours. Your first Baggin Wagler fish.
Oh, thank you. Oh, what do you make to that one then?
That's about the average sort of Drayton size for the Baggin Wagler. It's about £6. The white boil is still in its mouth, Jan. Let's just get your count nice marvellous up.
That's brilliant.
There we go. A lovely Drayton mirror.
He's even got his fin stuck up to show you.
Posing for the camera.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, it's about £6, maybe
yeah,
7?
Maybe pushing 7. It's a little bit bigger than the one I had, but average sort of stamp.
A little bit bigger than the one you had? That's not so bad,
far,
is it?
Some quantity, not quality.
All right, well, listen, let's pop that one back and talk about banging the dinner bell.
Oh, definitely. That's what Baggin Wagler fishing's all about.
Baggin Wagler is a really extraordinary piece of kit, but if you can't get hold of one, I'm just show you quickly how to make one. I'll do a little sketch. What you need is a piece of balsa, but a pike float will do, something around about 15 to 20 millimetres in diameter. And to the bottom of that you attach a method feeder, so you'd need to drill a hole in the bottom of that float. And on the cross members of the method feeder, before you actually glue that in there, you're going to put a little weight. That's going to give you sort of a self-cocking principle. It's got a swivel on the bottom there. That's where you attach your main line, and to that you attach the hook link to the actual hook, little clip with a boilie on it. And then the ground bait gets moulded around the float. And that, in essence, is the Baggin Wagler. Well, it really is a weird looking float, but you've got to give credit to Neil Millerchip, who popularised this particular technique. He was laughed at first, but now loads of people use them, and particularly on here, it's an absolutely devastating method.
The key to this, just keep it going in. The fish will come into the splash, so you just keep ringing that dinner bell and just wait for them to return. A lot of people make the mistake, cast it out, and they leave it out there, and you know what I mean, wait 5-10 minutes, it's not gone under, they haven't had a fish for an hour. You've got to keep ringing that bell, keep it going in, keep that cloud of food there, and those fish will come back to you. Carp are eating machines, so you've got to feed them. It's not all about speed, it's about getting into a rhythm. What you tend to find is you don't actually feel as though you're moving particularly quick. It's just getting into a rhythm of getting everything in the right place, close at hand, and then just going with the flow. At the end of the day, the more time you can actually spend in the water, the more fish you can actually catch. Too many people spend too much time messing about on the bank because they haven't got things to hand. Just keep things simple, nice and smooth, and it will result in more fish on the bank. Just add a little bit of a dip then. There we go. Nice soft strike and the fish is on. A lot of people who come to Drayton think they've got to be gunned up with big powerful carp rods and you're not chuck a million marks. You don't need a massive powerful rod. You do need something a bit more powerful than normal float rods. The ideal rods for the job are barbel rods. These come in sort of £1.25, £1.5 test curve. They're very through action and ideal for this sort of fishing. Mainly because you can really bend into the fish